Good. I now request Milind Kanitkar to please introduce Rotarian Simon Harris, RID 3220, Sri Lanka and Maldives.
Friends, it is my great pleasure to introduce Rotarian Simon Harris. He is a member of RC Colombo Uptown. He is a peace scholar. He has vast experience of more than 20 years in the field of conflict sensitivity and peace building processes. He has worked with United Nations Peace Program in Greece, Iraq, Kenya, Myanmar, Nepal, South Sudan, Somalia, Sri Lanka, Ukraine. I am sure his presentation will certainly give us more depth in the field of international peace. Let us welcome Rotarian Simon Harris.
Good morning, and thank you for the kind introduction and for the invitation to speak today. I'm going to be talking to you about the role of conflict sensitivity in community programming and projects. And I realize this concept of conflict sensitivity may be a new subject for many of you. So I'm going to explain why I think it's important in Rotary projects, exactly what it is, and I'm also going to explain how we can practically apply conflict sensitivity thinking in our projects by adapting Rotary's four-way test as a possible framework to operate within. Now, around the world, I don't think there's a single Rotary project that doesn't work in a conflict, in whichever context, whichever country. There's always somewhere in our projects, in the beneficiaries, in the people we work with, some layer of conflict, some tension, some rivalry, maybe some competition over limited resources, for instance. Even access to Rotary funding for, say, a village project in an isolated area is a limited resource. We choose one village, and by choosing that village to work with, maybe to build a well or to help with putting in latrines or some livelihood project, we don't choose another village. So we've made a choice. So Rotary funds is a limited resource. Not everybody has access to it. And the sort of issues, in every village and every community, there are people who have different issues, divergent needs, divergent interests. You may have tensions along ethnic, gender divisions, about ethnicity, religion, politics. We see that throughout South Asia. All the communities have different issues along those lines, caste and class issues. Even, not just South Asia, but across the world, you see those dynamics playing out. And it can play out at an interpersonal level, could be just between you and I, could be within families. We see it in all our families, tensions, issues, in communities, in villages, at a national level, and of course at an international level between states. So the impact of these tensions, these differences, these different needs can impact on our projects. And unless we take account of those different tensions, those different dynamics, we have the potential to risk not just our projects not working out quite the way we thought they might, but also maybe even doing more harm than good. And that's where the concept of conflict sensitivity comes in. And I'm going to explain conflict sensitivity in the context of a couple of examples of where projects went wrong. Now, these are not Rotary projects, but there's projects that I've been involved in or I've heard about over my career. But they could be Rotary projects because one of them involves helping people in IDP, an internally displaced setting like a refugee camp. And the other involves helping people who have lost their home and we're rebuilding properties. And we heard earlier about a construction project. So my first example is from Sri Lanka during the conflict period. Now, during the war, I worked quite a lot in northern Sri Lanka, where the actual conflict was taking place at the almost like the front line, so to speak. And there was a lot of displaced people. So the organization I worked for at that time used to help with the design of water and sanitation programs, particularly in displaced communities, particularly building wells, standpipes for people to wash, for them to have access to water. Now, one particular location where there was a lot of displaced people, we put in some water pipes, and every night they got destroyed, deliberately vandalized, and they couldn't be used. The people needed water, everybody needed water, and yet they were deliberately vandalizing their own water pumps. Now, why do you think that might be? We put a lot of thought into this. We went and asked everybody, and it turned out very simply, and this is something that I'm sure would resonate across South Asia and maybe some other countries, it was class and it was caste differences. Although everybody was displaced, they were all affected by conflict. They were from multiple different castes, and they could not tolerate the idea of bathing from the same well, drinking water from the same standpipe. So rather than accept their lot in life and that this water was for everybody in a difficult situation, some people in the community decided, I'm not going to drink from that water source, I'm going to destroy it instead. So this is an example of where the project had been designed without the correct level of sensitivity. What we did after that is we put in a number of water pipes in different areas around the camp, because people from different castes tended to put their tents in different areas. So we had to have multiple standpipes, and then that worked. Had we thought of that from the beginning and designed that originally, we wouldn't have exacerbated the tensions in the camp. We wouldn't have had problems with conflict and rivalry between the castes. The second example I'm going to share with you is from the tsunami period. And as you know, after the tsunami, there was kind of a second tsunami of NGOs all coming in, all wanting to do good. And most of them did good. And most of them were very well-meaning. So in Eastern Sri Lanka, there was a particular village, a multi-ethnic village. There was Tamils, Sinhalese, and Muslims all living in the same village. And most of them had had their houses destroyed by the tsunami. So this one particular agency thought it would be a great idea. They had enough funds to build 3,000 houses. So they thought, okay, we'll build 1,000 for the Tamils, 1,000 for the Sinhalese, and 1,000 for the Muslims. That sounds fair, doesn't it? Everybody gets an equal number of houses. Where's going to be the chance of conflict there? It was a complete disaster. The people refused to live in the houses. There was constant complaints to the NGO involved, and there was destruction of property. There was fights between the community because of these houses. Why? Well, a number of issues. First of all, the houses, the communities themselves were not equally affected by the tsunami. They weren't equally proportioned in terms of demographics. So one ethnic group had a lot more people affected than another group. One community of the three communities was much poorer than the other groups. They had a greater need. They couldn't afford to rebuild. One group had a lot more access to resources and could afford to build on their own. On top of that, the houses were all designed in exactly the same way. And the NGO said, here's your design. This is what you're getting. Now, as you know, all our communities, whether they're Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Muslim, or whatever, they have different expectations, cultural norms, different needs regarding washing facilities, privacy, gendered division of the household, communal areas for prayer, and those impact in a big way or a small way on the design of the houses. Now, this NGO hadn't thought about that at all, and in a way they were insensitive to the local dynamics, to the local needs, and the project was a failure. Now, I'm wondering, does this resonate with any of you in terms of our community projects? Do we put in a well or a standpipe without really thinking about some of these issues? Do we build houses for a disaster-affected community who've lost their houses without thinking about these dynamics? I've been in Rotary a long time, and I know that we don't give full thought to these issues often. And my challenge for you is that we should. So I'd like to talk, conflict sensitivity is a way in which we can conceptualize and analyze the issues. Now, the concept of conflict sensitivity has gained traction with many NGOs, international NGOs, UN, Red Cross, Red Crescent movement around the world. It's something that is being mainstreamed in projects. It's something that donors, World Bank, Indian government, when they did projects, housing projects in Sri Lanka, DFID, British government, Japanese aid, all these different donor bodies are focusing very carefully on how and to what extent are our projects conflict sensitive. And I believe that Rotary should also think about how conflict sensitive are our projects, because we want to do good, we don't want to do more harm inadvertently. Now, I know there's be a few medical doctors among you in the audience today, and you'll have all taken the Hippocratic Oath. And one of those promises you made is to do no harm. Okay? Now, it's exactly the same in humanitarian aid, assistance, development. We want to make sure that we do no harm. And indeed, in the late 1990s, a movement came up with some research out of America looking at do no harm in emergency assistance. And conflict sensitivity kind of develops from the concept of do no harm, but it takes it a step further. It calls for us, when we're designing our projects at a club level or at a district level or at a foundation level, it calls for us to be sensitive to the context in which the project is located, to be sensitive to the local social, cultural, economic, environmental dynamics, the political dynamics, the gendered and ethnic dynamics, and to ask questions around those so we make sure that our project will not raise tensions, it will not cause problems in the community, and that it will do good and won't cause any unintended problems. So that, in a nutshell, is conflict sensitivity. Now, how can we apply it in our programs? I think the main way is to make sure we take the time and ask questions beyond just the need. If a community says we need a well, why do they need a well? Who is that well going to benefit? What do the people in the village next door who maybe have not got a well feel about this being built? Is the next village a different ethnicity or a different class or caste? Is it going to cause tensions? And it's only by looking at that and by locating the project and then developing the project so it's a win-win for everybody concerned, maybe even in the community itself, Maybe you're building a well, but the wall is too high and disabled people can't get access to bring up the bucket. That's going to cause a problem. That means people are left out and they're not enjoying the intended benefits. So one way I've designed of looking at this is to use the four-way test as a framework for us to consider conflict sensitivity. And in a minute, I'm going to share my screen with you to look at a slide on exactly this. So I'll do that now and I'll talk our way through it. Okay, so I hope you're getting that slide now. Pradeep, give me the thumbs up that you can see that.
Yeah, I
Excellent.
can see. Only try to make it a bit fast because we are running late. Sorry, but it's a very beautiful
This will take me another 3
presentation.
minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Beautiful,
so
beautiful.
as you can see, there's the 4 areas of the four-way test. So if you apply this to a project level, is it the truth? Do we really understand the context? Are we only listening to certain gatekeepers who are explaining the project to us and they have their own vested interests? Whose truth are we looking at? Are there other stakeholders we need to consider? Is it fair to all concerned? I mean, does the project exclude some stakeholders? Have we consulted everybody? Have they helped inform the design, and do all these stakeholders agree on the project? Or are there people left out? Is there disagreements? Are there already tensions over the design? Will this project build goodwill and better friendships? Or will it exacerbate existing tensions and divisions in society? Will it strengthen social cohesion? That's what we're looking for in these projects. It's not just, you know, if we're trying to impact on peace, it's not just livelihoods. It's not just giving people access to water or electricity or jobs. It's doing that with another aim, which is to strengthen social cohesion in multi-ethnic, multi-linguistic, multi-religious societies. Will our project be beneficial to all concerned? Have to have a look at what are the outcomes equitable? Are there value chains that enable that project to advantage people down the chain? Are some people actually being disadvantaged by our project? Are some people being advantaged more than others? So this is a way in which you can utilize the four-way test to look at conflict sensitivity in your projects and hopefully analyze whatever project you're doing, just taking a little extra time to make sure that it does more good and doesn't exacerbate any tensions and doesn't create problems that they were actually trying to solve. So that ends my presentation today. I hope you found it interesting. And once again, thank you for the invitation and thank you for giving me a platform to explain what I feel is quite an important subject for Rotary to take heed of. Thank you.
Yes, Pradeep.
Yes, Pradeep, can you please unmute?
Unmute.
Thank you, Rotarian Simon. So today you have given us wonderful presentation and we got a new insight in our four-way test. I request Rotarian Simon to kindly accept our special souvenir, which is presented to you virtually. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
Over to Pradeep.
Okay, it was a very wonderful presentation. Sorry, I had to cut you short. We started running late because of our own faults, some technical problem in video, etc. Apologies for that. We move on. Please try to be in time. Can we do this quiz one later?
No, let's take it first.
Huh? Okay, we'll take the quiz one very fast. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so hello all, and we are at our first quiz question, and instructions to all the attendees that as soon as the question comes, you will have 3 options and you have to type the answer in your chat box. So looking forward for your participation. And my question is, Maldives is in which Rotary district? Option 1, 7230. Option 2, 3070. And option 3, 3220. Request to fastest finger first, please type your answers, and we have answers right away here. And the first correct answer, just a minute, I'm just checking. Yeah, the first correct answer goes to Maurya Doshi. Congratulations, Maurya. Thank you.